and I'm doing a degree in digital TV production. And as part of the workload, one of the modules we have to produce a scripted piece of work and a film entitled Fear of Loss. Part of my film requires some music, custom-made music for the beginning of the film and for the end of the film, and I'm here now to give a brief for that particular piece of work.
My name is Francis Knight. I'm on the third year of a music degree, and part of my module is to work with a filmmaker or similar to produce up to 5 or 6 minutes of music for an original piece. Work under a brief, and work under direction, and for the collaborative element of the course.
The brief that I've given Francis already is that the music has to be for the beginning, for the intro, through 2 of the 3 main scenes within the film Fear of Loss. The first part is a large vehicle driving along a road and then off the road into a wooded area. And there's no dialogue within that first part, and then the vehicle drives to a natural stop, and then there's a flashback of the main character, Toby's dad, having a nervous breakdown earlier that same day within a tool shed, and the music that's required will last throughout the whole of that main scene, which is approximately half a minute of driving off the road, and then the breakdown scene, which is perhaps another minute and a half. And the music that I had previously chosen was Heat from Rhythm of the Heat by Peter Gabriel, just the soundtrack from the film Birdie. And the reason I'd chosen that was because it's quite monotonous, it's boom, 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 and it's quite sinister. But obviously, because of copyright, I couldn't use that piece of work. So that's the first piece of work that I'd be looking for, a continuous stream. And then perhaps as the main characters leave the vehicle and they go on through the woods for the third scene, something that starts off quite nice and pleasant and then becomes a bit more sinister as they walk through the woods itself gets more dark. And then the last scene is when the deed's been done and Toby's been shot and buried, is the father then moving back to the car and ultimately driving off back from whence he came. And the music that I'd chosen for that was Birdie's Flight, again from Peter Gabriel, Birdie's film soundtrack, mainly because it's still sinister, but there's a bit of hope in there. He's cleansed himself and he's moved on and he's been reborn and he can get on with the rest of his life. So there's that, but again, because of copyright, can't use that, so I'd spoke to Francis. So Francis, what ideas have you got for the main piece of work, the part when the film starts? You can see like a shot of a vehicle driving along a straight road, wooded area on either side, right, and then he goes off.
I'm thinking a loop of sort of heavy reverb-laden drums to keep the drive, to emulate sort of the drive of the vehicle and the ambition of the main character to do what he's going to do, sort of driving it along. There's like quite a few emotions involved, so there's a lot to work on there because there's sort of a tinge of what people might call evil. It's very desperate, it's sad, it's very melancholy, so there's a lot of room for sort of mournful strings and cello, things like that, to be like playing melody underneath. So it's kind of like a simple, quite long melody over quite large drum sound.
And what we'd mentioned before when we discussed it earlier is obviously there's 3 people in the vehicle. There's Toby, who's like an 8-year-old schoolboy. There's his dad, and there's a dog. And the idea of the film is that the viewer doesn't actually know it's Toby that croaks it until the last few seconds. They're assuming that they've come to the woods to kill the dog, which is disease-ridden or whatever.
Yeah.
And they never actually get to see any of the faces, so they pick in their heads, they pick up their own ideas of what these characters could be like, and the justification of what's going to happen. What we discussed before is perhaps using, as they go through the woods, using something that relates to, say, the boy and the dog.
Yeah, definitely using themes. Because I thought using themes like one simple melody, maybe not so much for the father, but definitely for the dog / small boy. So like the audience, listener or whatever, think the melody is for the child, but then when ultimately the dog returns to the car, the melody plays again and it clicks, the melody was actually for the dog.
So that melody would be used on screen when you see those two characters together, the boy and the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So it sort of adds to the thing of the audience thinking it's the dog who's going to get it.
Yeah.
And then basically it's ultimately the song's about the dog rather than the child.
Mm. And then when scene 2 actually ends with the gunshot blast. We don't see anything. We just assume that the dog's croaked it, and then vision of the sky and crows flying, that kind of thing. And then as Toby's dad walks back through the woods, he's talking to Toby. Obviously Toby's not there, but the viewer doesn't get to know that until the end. He's justifying to Toby what's been done, and we're assuming when he's talking to Toby that he's meaning the dog, but in reality he's justifying to the dog what he's done to Toby in the way that it works. And the music for that, I was looking at something that's quite sinister, because his world isn't going to change around now that he's killed his son, although he's got in his head good justification for doing it.
Yeah.
And then as he drives off, the music is more emotional and complex than the beginning music, which is all drum beats and rhythmic and so on. But it's not. It's still not happy. There's no happy ending to the story. So what ideas would you have for that?
So there's maybe some kind of resolve in the music to bring it to an end. Sort of music can flow, and then there's like certain chord structures and melodies that bring about the emotion of, well, not emotion, but the feeling of resolve. So the situation and the music have resolved themselves.
Yeah.
So that's maybe something to think about towards the end of the piece.
Yeah.
The resolve of it.
For all of the music, there doesn't have to be an actual beginning and end, because what I'll do when I'm editing it is I will flow the music in from, gradually increase the volume to the volume that it needs to be, and then I'll fade it out, so it doesn't have to come to some massive crescendo or whatever.
Okay.
Like a constant pulse, if that makes sense. So that's the concept, and again, it means that when you supply the work, it can be, it can be 10 minutes long, it can be 4 minutes long, and I'll just slice. I'll chop the bit that's needed and filter it into when I do the editing.
Yeah.